Hey friends, Patrick God here and welcome to this new tutorial about a minimal API and the traditional web API. This is a comparison between those two. Now we've got the minimal API additionally to the web API with .NET 6, and in this little video now I'm showing you how you can implement both in one single project. Maybe you shouldn't really do that in production, but for learning purposes I think this is a great idea maybe. So on the one hand we have the minimal API, everything is done in the Program.cs, and then we've got the traditional web API with the controller. So how would you do that? Well, in this video you find the answer. Additionally, we will use an entity framework core InMemory, a database. So with that you see how the way with a real database would work when you're using a minimal API and a traditional web API. Now if you don't want to see the comparison and just want to see the web API and the minimal API in action, well, I've got videos for that. Please check out the info card here, because with the first one you will see an implementation of only a minimal API, and with this now you will see the complete way with a web API and a SQL Server in .NET 6. Okay, but still, if you want to see both and really see a comparison side by side, so the implementations and then how would that look in SwaggerUI, then please keep watching. What we are going to do is just building a teeny tiny video game database. So we add some strings and the dates. All the CRUD operations are implemented, meaning create, read, update, and delete. With the HTTP request methods get, post, put, and delete, we get all the video games, a single one, create one, update one, and delete one. So this is everything you need to know, I guess. If you like this video and learned something, I'd really appreciate it if you click the like button, maybe even subscribe to my channel. And as always, don't forget the bell icon here, because with that you get a notification as soon as I upload a new video. Also, please check out my newsletter if you want to get all these videos here earlier in your inbox with some more information, and also early access to the upcoming .NET 6 Web Developer Bootcamp, where we will focus on the skills you need to get a job in the .NET 6 or the .NET and C# and Microsoft web development world, meaning we have a look at Blazor, the front-end part of .NET 6, the back-end part also with a web API, and now also a minimal API, and also other stuff like interview questions, maybe Scrum a little bit, and DevOps. So let's see what we're going to do there. Maybe the newsletter is interesting for you. And as always, thank you so much everybody for all your support. Really appreciate it. Means a lot to me. So thank you everybody. This is the stuff that is enabling me to make all these videos. And now I stop talking, enjoy the tutorial. All right, here we are, Visual Studio 2022, and we create a new project. We choose ASP.NET Core Web API with C#, of course. So if you don't see it here in your recent project templates, just have a look here, search for templates, and then you should be good to go, or you filter by Web API, and there it is also. All right, so we click next and we call this thing now minimal API versus web API, like that. Maybe click next, and now we start with the minimal API. So our framework is .NET 6, configure for HTTPS is great. Don't need Docker here. We enable open API support. That's great as well. So we got our SwaggerUI there to test our APIs. And here now, this is important. The default way is the traditional web API way. But as it says here, whether to use minimal APIs instead of controllers, we can uncheck this thing, and then we will add the controller in a minute. So let's click create. And there's our really minimalistic project, right? We've got only one file, and if you already had a look at my minimal API tutorial, then you should be familiar with this thing. So what do we have here? We've got Swagger configuration, add endpoints, API controller. In development, we use SwaggerUI, HTTPS redirection. That was the check mark we have checked in essence. And then here, this is new to the, or with the minimal API. We've got our summaries here for the weather forecast example, and then also already the first get method. Weather forecast is the API, and then we get our weather forecast, and in here they also have the class. All right, so before we test this, what I want to do is actually remove all that, so we do not see anything related to the weather forecast. All right, and now this is really minimalistic, so not a lot going on here. And with that, we have our minimal API. All right, so now to realize the traditional way, we have to create a folder first. Maybe it makes sense. So we add a new controllers folder, controllers, and in here we add a new controller. So we choose this menu entry here, controller, and then we want an API controller. And as you already can see here, again, if you had a look already in my other tutorials, then maybe you know this. Otherwise, now you are going to learn this. We've got three options here: the empty one, read-write actions, and actions using Entity Framework. We will use Entity Framework in memory here, but still I like to use the empty one, because with that it's a good way to learn, and also you can then decide what you want to write yourself, and you don't have to remove any code. You can really focus on the stuff you want to implement. So API controller empty it is, and we call this thing video game controller because I want to add a class video game where we will create, read, update, and delete simple video game entities. So now you can see this is how a controller looks. This is the difference to the minimal API. We've got our route attribute here. We've got our API controller attribute we derive from controller base. And now regarding the model, we add a new class, call this a video game, and this thing gets an ID, also a name, then maybe let's also add the developer. All right, and the last thing maybe the release date, like that, and let's say by default this is string empty, and here as well. So with that, we've got our model and our controller, and also the stuff we need for our minimal API. Now to make controllers work, this is important, we have to add some stuff here. First thing we need is we have to add controllers. So with the builder, services, and then add controllers, there you see it, add services for controllers to the specified iService collection. This method will not register services used for views or pages. Yes, we don't need views here for that. We just want to use controllers, and these are the controllers we've just added here in the controllers folder, or the single one. And additionally, down here we need another middleware, and that would be app map controllers. There you can see it adds endpoints for controller actions to the endpoint route builder without specifying any route. So with this thing, then we are able to use our endpoints of this video game controller, for instance, and this should be it. And then you really are able to use the minimal API and the traditional web API in one single project. Don't know why you would like to do that, but it is possible. So now we save this. And one more thing regarding the boilerplate is Entity Framework Core in memory. Would really like to use this here, because with that we already see how this would work with a real database, but we do not have to use a real database. With Entity Framework Core in memory, we can build a similar boilerplate, but and inject the data context, the database context, and use database sets and so on. But again, we do not have to really use or build all that database stuff with code first migration and so on. I've got other tutorials for that if you like to see this. So please check out my channel. Maybe you also want to subscribe. That would be really nice. Thanks a lot for that. But now let's focus on Entity Framework in memory. So we right click the project, manage NuGet packages. We go to browse, and then within memory, we should already see it. There it is. Let's install this thing. Click OK, accept. Perfect, and it is already here. Now for that, we need a data context. So let's add a new folder first. Call this thing data, and in here we add a new class and call this data context. We add the DbContext here. And for that we need the using directive for Microsoft Entity Framework Core. And since we're using C#10 here, let's put this here maybe. And we are using the global keyword, so this is now available everywhere. And the first thing here is the constructor, so data context. This thing gets a parameter DbContext options, and then data context. We call this options, and we use the base constructor here as well. Then regarding our video game, we need a database set. So prop, hit tab, and then db set of type video game. We call this games. This would be the name of the table then, or we call this video games here. And if you don't like this little warning here, then instead of the getter and the setter, just use set video game. Okay, and with that, we are already done with the data context here, but we have to register this thing as well. So we go to the Program.cs here, and here to register the data context, we type builder services and then add DbContext and then data context. All right. I think we need another using directive here, and let's make this global as well. Okay, and then here this thing gets some options, and we say use InMemory database. And if you're familiar with that, similar to the use a SQL server method, for instance, or use SQLite whatsoever, you need a string here, but this time it's not a connection string. You do not need a connection string that can be found in the app settings JSON, for instance. With InMemory, we can just give this thing a name like video game database, and we are done with that. Okay, now we've got our data context here. It is registered, and now let's focus on the CRUD operations. So first, again, the traditional video game controller. First thing we need is we have to add a constructor and inject our data context. So data context it is. I hit Control period to open the quick fix menu and then say create and assign field context, and we add the underscore, and I know I can configure Visual Studio to add the underscore automatically, but with every update, and you see here there's already the next update, the configuration is gone and I don't know why. Still, what we can now do is we write our first method, and this should be a get method. You see it here, IntelliCode already suggests this attribute, and regarding the method we write public async task, and let's define this as action result with the list of video games, and we call this get video games. And in here now we are missing an angle bracket, and now we add another one. We need another one. Now it works. And here we simply return OK, and then await context video games to list async. All right. So this is already our get method in the traditional way. And now let's have a look at the minimal API. Down here, before app run, we can already define our method, and we do that with app and then map get. We enter a route, for instance, video game, and you see the difference now. This is our route, just / video game, and in here now it would be API / and then the name of the controller, which is video game. Okay, this is the only difference. And in here now we just add a little lambda expression where we also inject the data context, call it like that, and then we can add a method or just use the arrow operator without any curly braces and just say await context video games to list async. And this is everything we have to do with the minimal API. Is it good or bad? I leave that up to you. Now, I would say we test this already, and let's have a look what Swagger will display. There it is already, and you can see Swagger is recognizing the video game controller here, also the schema, and now we can just run our traditional web API with try it out, hit execute, and of course we get nothing back. So the response body is just an empty array. And now what about this thing here? We try it out, hit execute, and also an empty body. Okay, now of course we haven't added any video games to our database yet, so I would say we focus now on the post method to create video games, but you can already see this works in one single project. Again, maybe you shouldn't really do that, but just for learning purposes, I think this is already pretty interesting. Okay, now posts, all right? So in our video game controller, we add another method with HTTP post for creating the game or new game, and maybe we can then just return all our video games after we added one. So again, task, action, results, list of video games will be returned. Call this create video game with a video game as an argument. And here we just say context video games add game, and then await context save changes async, and again we return. And yes, I'm copy pasting this a lot. I know we can refactor this, fix that, but for this tutorial, and I really try to make this quick, this is everything we have to here. Okay, so we add the game, save the changes, and then return the complete list again. And now the minimal API, the difference now here is app map post. So this is the HTTP method. The route is again video game. You see we have to define the route again, of course. And now we say async data context, and also now our video game. And now let's add some curly braces here for the function, format this a little bit. And here in essence, we add almost the same we did in the web API. We say context, video games add game, and then await context save changes async, but returning all our games looks a little bit different now. What we do is we write return results, okay, and then await context video games to list async. All right, and here the type is missing. All right, so now we're done with that. And again, I would say we test this. Swagger already got this method. Maybe let's just restart the application. Okay, now we got both. We got a post method here. Let's try this one out. And maybe we can say, yeah, let's add an ID 1. Half-Life 2, developer is Valve, and the date was 2004, November, and then the 16th. So let's try that. We hit execute. There's Half-Life 2. Now what about getting all these games? So try this one out, hit execute. There's Half-Life 2. What about the minimal API? We hit execute. There's Half-Life 2 as well. And what about adding another game? So let's use the post method of our minimal API. We try this one out. IDs 2 this time. Day of the Tentacle maybe. Amazing game. If you like this game as well, please tell me that in the comments. And tell me why you loved it or still love it as much as I do. The date was way back 1993, May 25th. Okay, hit execute. And this works as well. We've got all our games, Half-Life 2 and Day of the Tentacle. And now, of course, when you restart this thing, then, well, everything is gone because this is just stored in memory. So maybe we can copy this. Let's copy this real quick. So we got it available if we have to edit again. So maybe just put this here and uncomment this. All right. So this works. Now I would say put, right? Or what about a single game? Maybe we can also add really quick a method to get a single game. So this would be an HTTP GET, and now we add a route in parentheses, and then in quotation marks, and then in curly braces, we add the parameter ID. Let's call this get video game, and also here is the ID. And then we say var game is await context video games find async ID. If the game is null, we return not found. No game here. And otherwise, we return our game. Okay. So let's see. Is it still here? I'm not sure. Let's get all the games first. Try this. It executes. They're still here. That's nice. Okay. And now the single game. So try this one out. ID 1 executes. Works. Perfect. What about ID 3? No game here. Nice. Okay, now the minimal API. We go back to our Program.cs. And let's add it here, app map get again. And the route now is a video game. And then also in curly braces, we just enter the ID. So this is really the route you would see here. Yeah, here it is, right? So video game and then / and then the ID. So we can do exactly the same here in essence. We add async data context again, and this time the ID as a parameter. And now we say maybe something like that, await context video games find async ID, and we can check like that if this is a video game. This means it is not null, video game, and then in this case, we just say return results, okay, game, and otherwise we return results, not found, no game here. All right, and close this parenthesis. So this is the minimal API way. And let's test that again. Reload this here. No, this does not work. Hot reload. Also not working. Interesting. Okay, and now let's restart the application. Maybe because we changed the Program.cs file. But now I guess we don't get any games. Correct. So let's add one real quick. We close this. Post a new game, and to make this a bit quicker, let's just call this game string. Okay, and here now we should get this game. ID is 1. Oh, of course, we are using Entity Framework Core here, so I think the ID is added automatically. So now, where's the single? Here's the single one. Try this one out. What about ID 2 now? No game here. Great. What about ID 1? Our game string is here from the developer string. And it is, well, the date and time is not really correct. But anyways, still works. All right, so we've already did a lot. Getting all the video games works, getting a single one works, creating one. So only 2 are left, which would be the put and the delete method. So let's use put first. HTTP put it is. Now we can use an ID here as well for the route. So that would be the right attribute. Let's copy this real quick. And we call this update video game. We've got a video game and also the ID here. Now we try to get the game first. And if we get it, let's call this a DB game maybe for database game. And if we got one, we say game name is game name. DB game developer is game developer, and DB game release is game release. We save our changes and we return all the games again. All right, well, let's test that. Do we have any games? We have the string one. All right, so here's our put method of the traditional web API. Try this out. First, what happens with the wrong ID? No game here. Great. So now let's say we've got ID 1 and let's fix that. Half-Life 2, Valve, and that would be 2004 again. November 16th. We hit execute and there's our game. Nice. Okay, so this seems to work. Let's try to get all the games here with the minimal API. Yep, that's correct. Okay, now the minimal API way. We go to the Program.cs. And now down here we write app map put. Again, video game, and then again the ID. And in here now, again, we inject our data context, and the ID. And then we have a new method here where we say our DB hero is await context video games find async ID. And we do not have a hero here, we have a game actually. And now if the DB game is null, we just return results not found. Nope. And in here now, let's just copy this. We override every property. Oh, of course, I forgot the game. So, video game. Game it is. This should work now. And now await context save changes async. And then return results. Okay. And again, we just return all our heroes. Okay, and I think we have to restart the application again. There it is. Let's post a new one. We hit execute. And we get this game here. That's correct. And now again, our put with, let's try ID2 again. hit execute. Nope, that's correct. ID 1, Half-Life 2, Valve, and then 2004, November 16th. We hit execute. This seems to work. Let's get all our games again. Yep, there's Half-Life 2. Great! And now only deleting is missing. So HTTP delete. Again with an ID, of course. Public async. Let's just copy this here. Delete video game int ID. We try to find this stuff. Again, I know we can refactor this, but this is a quick and dirty tutorial, so please bear with me here. Now we've got our context. We say remove DbGame, context video games, of course. DbGame, await, context, save changes, async, and again return all our games. And now let's already implement the minimal API way. So again, we only have the ID here as parameter with the HTTP delete attribute. Try to find the game and then remove it. All right, and now in the minimal API, let me copy this. I know this is kind of risky because I always do these copy and paste errors. Map delete this time. Don't need the game here. We just inject the context and have the ID as parameter. Try to find this. No game to delete here. Or actually, we don't want to remove any games, right? So that's great. And then we say context video games and remove DbGame. All right, everything is saved. Let's just restart the application. And we got all our CRUD operations here. So let's create one. Hit execute. There it is. Again, when we want to see all our games, we've got the game string here. Now let's try to delete it with the minimal API. First, a wrong ID. No game to delete here. ID 1. It is gone, right? And now we try to get all the games. It's gone. And now let's post one here with the traditional web API. It is here with ID 2 now. That's interesting, right? So this SQL Server would work exactly the same way, I think. Let me try to get this. ID 2 is here, and now let's try to delete this one again. So ID 1 would not work anymore. No game here. That's correct. And ID 2, we've got an empty array. Nice. Okay, so this is everything. Really quick again. And of course I will push this to GitHub. So we've got our minimal API way where we write all our calls in essence down here with the methods map, delete, put, post, and get. We define the HTTP request method, and then we can really quick and dirty write our methods here. And the other way is the traditional controller. So we've got our attribute, we've got our methods here, we've got our constructor where we inject some stuff. And well, please tell me what you prefer when you have a look here. So we've got the traditional web API, we've got our minimal API. Again, important for the controllers is this thing here, map controllers, and also add controllers. For the minimal API, we don't need these. But yeah, what do you prefer? Really, it's really interesting for me what you think is better. I know that maybe you want to see some performance stuff. didn't do that yet, maybe it would be nice to see a benchmark here. The official documentation says that the minimal API should be faster. Well, for that kind of stuff here in this tutorial, in this example, I did not really see any difference at all. So I don't know if this difference is that crucial in the long run. I think it's more crucial that the application you build is maintainable and readable and so on. So please tell me what you think, and I hope you learned something. That should be it for now. There you have it. That's it. Minimal API versus a traditional web API. What do you think? What is better? What is faster? Maybe you recognized something regarding performance. And yeah, what do you like more? The Program.cs with the minimal API or the traditional way with the web API? If you come from the Node.js world, then maybe you see similarities in the minimal API way. So maybe this is something for you. I think I still like the traditional way a bit more because it's more organized, maybe. Well, let's see with future projects what I will use and what's more fun for me. If you learned something and like this video, I would really appreciate it if you click the like button and subscribe to my channel. Don't forget the bell icon as always to get a notification for new videos. Thanks so much for that. Additionally, please have a look at the newsletter if you want to get these videos earlier in your inbox and also get early access to the upcoming .NET 6 Web Developer Bootcamp. And last but not least, as always, guys, last drop here. Thank you so much for all your support. Means a lot to me and I can really use that stuff to make these videos here. So thank you very much again. And now thank you very much for your time. Thank you a lot for watching this video and staying with me, being part of this great community. And I hope I see you in the next video. Take care.